Well, hi there, everybody. Chuck Holton here. How's it going? I'm in Armenia today, and there have been some breaking news out of Israel, so I wanted to bring it to you in a live format so that we could talk about it a little bit. Thank you for watching. I appreciate all of you who are online. If you want to follow the other reporting that I'm doing from all over the world, you can go to chuckholton.com, or you can go to my YouTube channel and subscribe right here on the Hot Zone. I also do reporting on the Christian Broadcasting Network, CBN News YouTube channel, and Newsmax from time to time. So, yeah, I know it's been a while. We're on a tour. We've got a bunch of our viewers who have joined us here in Armenia. We're having a great time. But let's talk about what's happening in Israel. So today, Sunday, September 15th, it's about 9 a.m. on the East Coast of America, and here in where am I? Armenia, it's 5 p.m. That would make it 4 p.m., I think, in Tel Aviv. There has been missile fired from the Houthis, and this is the, probably the 500th time that they've fired a missile. I don't know how many exactly they've fired since October 7th, but the Houthis have made a habit of firing missiles at Israel in solidarity with the Palestinians in Gaza. This one, we've made a lot of fun of the Houthis in the past because they have been unable to actually even penetrate Israeli airspace. But it looks like they're upping their game a little bit because this one actually did enter Israeli airspace. So slow clap for the Houthis. Great job. No injuries, no damage reported other than fire that broke out in an open area near Modi'in, I believe, which is just outside of Jerusalem. I drive by there all the time on my way to any place that's in like the West Bank. But they did put a very large portion of Israel under a missile alert today. So if we look at the Shofar app, you can see here that everything from Tel Aviv all the way to Modi'in, and so about halfway to Jerusalem. They say about 2 million people were under a alert because of this missile. They weren't sure exactly where it was coming from at first. They said it was coming from the east, so they thought it was coming from Iraq, and it may indeed have come across the border from Iraq. That missile may have, they come in from the east, even though it was fired from the south. It didn't come in over Eilat, is what I'm saying. They didn't have any missile alerts over Eilat. They're still doing an investigation as to how it didn't get shot down before it made it into Israeli airspace. Now, one of the reasons that may be is that it's apparently a Fatah 2 missile, which is an Iranian-made hypersonic missile. A hypersonic missile is any missile that goes more than Mach 5. And this one, according to the Houthi press release that was put out after it exploded, the Houthis said that that the missile traveled about 1,200 kilometers in 11 and a half minutes. That would make it traveling about Mach 8. The Fatah 2 missile can apparently travel up to 1,500 kilometers at up to Mach 15. And so this would have been, within its capabilities for sure. But there is some video that came out of the Iron Dome system shooting it down. Actually, it was, they say, an Arrow missile system, one of the ones that can go actually into space to shoot down a missile. And those things have a range of like 1,500 miles. So the question is, why did the Arrow system wait until it was over Israeli airspace to shoot it down? It may have something to do with the fact that it was coming over, coming in over Jordan. And so they weren't sure. It could be very similar to what happened with the drone that the Houthis, the other time the Houthis managed to penetrate Israeli airspace, which was a couple of months ago, where they got a drone in over the Mediterranean Sea that came into Tel Aviv, was targeting the U.S. consulate in Tel Aviv and just missed it, hit an apartment building and actually killed a guy. 50-something-year-old Israeli guy was killed in that attack. That's the only time that the Houthis have managed to kill an Israeli so far. They've only managed to get to get any missiles or rockets or drones or anything into Israeli airspace twice that I know of. And so the statement from the Houthis was that this was a successful operation, that it came in and hit its target and caused all these Zionists to run to their shelters, and that there would be more of these forthcoming, especially on the anniversary of October 7th. They said they're planning a big attack. This attack apparently coincided with the birthday of the Prophet Muhammad. They said that millions of Yemenis went out into the streets to celebrate the birth of the Prophet, and as by way of celebration, fired this Iranian hypersonic missile. Now, more likely, I do have some footage actually of the missile, but first I want to show you the map. Here, let's take a look at this map. Let me go over here. So Yemen, obviously down here. The Houthis control the northwest part of Yemen, right around in here. So it was likely fired from this area. And you can see that if it took a direct line at Israel, yes, it would have come in from the east over Jordan and Saudi Arabia. Traveling that fast, it could not be shot down most likely by a fighter jet, because the fighter jet couldn't catch it. If it was a Saudi fighter jet or a Jordanian fighter jet, an Israeli fighter jet might have been able to get up and fire directly at it, but instead they fired a arrow at it, which is, an arrow is made to shoot down things like this, long-range intercontinental ballistic missiles, other ballistic missiles that are hypersonic. And we're not sure if it actually shot it down or if it missed and the missile just landed, out in the middle of nowhere. I would show you footage of the missile actually falling back to Earth. There are a couple of cell phone videos out that have been released about that. However, people are such bad photographers. I always think, it shouldn't take that much skill to turn the phone on your camera, hit record, and hold the camera still and let the action happen on the screen. But man, there must be something to that. It must actually take some skill, because these cell phone videos of the Iron Dome system working and the rocket falling back to Earth and all that are so shaky, I can't even show them to you. They're just terrible. So I don't know if people just get excited and they start waving their phone around or whatever, but wow, just really bad. But you can see here some footage of the missile being fired. Now, take note of the shape of this missile. It's got a pointy nose. It's got fins on the front and the back. Of course, they blur out all of the stuff around it and the launcher so that Israel can't glean any information about where it was fired from and maybe strike that area. So you can see here the rocket taking off, and some of these shots of it arcing into the sky, you can see it. It is accelerating very rapidly. This is a really fast rocket. So you see it there. And I just want to point out also the bottom right hand of the screen, the text that you see there in that little box is the Yemeni flag. It's a representation of the Yemeni flag. And that Yemeni flag says, "Death to Israel, death to America, glory to Islam," or something like that. And, you've heard me talk about this a lot. If your entire country, if your entire life, your entire worldview revolves around who you hate, then you're not going to have a very good life. Things are not going to be very well developed in your country. Case in point, Gaza. Case in point, Yemen. Yemen is a giant dirt parking lot populated by camels and, 7th century goat herders. And apparently these 7th century goat herders know how to push the button to launch a missile, but that doesn't take a whole lot of skill. There are a lot of rumors floating around that these 7th century goat herders probably don't have the skill to aim or maintain these rockets and launchers that they have from Iran. And so the Iranians and or the Russians are there to help them with their targeting and to help them with the maintenance and that sort of thing. And they would probably need that because the Yemenis, and it's obvious the Houthis, you don't have to see very many of the videos that they put out to realize these guys are not the brightest bulbs in the box, if you know what I mean. Okay? And they will likely make a music video out of what happened today. They're so proud of themselves that they blew up some empty space inside Israel, but they actually got a missile into Israel for once. So, yay, good for the Houthis. And I don't mean to make light of it, but it is kind of ridiculous. They have spent probably billions of dollars worth of Iran's missiles and rockets at this point, coming from Yemen, and they have managed to kill one guy in Israel. And that's a tragedy, and there should be repercussions for this. The really sad thing about this is that the United States had a carrier strike group in the area in order to, that's like 12 ships. That's like some of the most advanced firepower on planet Earth. A carrier strike group carries more firepower than most nations. And yet the United States was unable to put a stop to this. And mostly because, not because they didn't have the capacity to do it, but because they did not have the inclination, meaning they did not have the clearance. The U.S. government did not facilitate them with the authority to take the actions necessary to put a stop to this kind of shenanigans coming from the Houthis. And since the United States government is more concerned with optics than with outcomes, you're going to see more of that. And they don't have U.S. ships there now. Those ships have pulled out in the very recent past and have left other coalition ships there to do the work. There are some U.S. ships there, just not carrier strike group, sorry. But there are far too few to cover the entire Bab el-Mandab Straits, much less the Gulf of Aden and the Red Sea and the other areas around there that the Houthis could strike at. And so the Houthis have been having all kinds of fun striking ships and sending missiles and drones at Israel. They've been much more effective and successful at hitting hapless cargo ships that have nothing to do with Israel than they have with hurting Israel. But be that as it may, Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed that there will be a very heavy response from Israel about this after this attack. Okay, I've got to keep an eye on the time here because we've got dinner coming up and I've got to leave here in about half an hour. So I'm going to get to some of the other news and then I'll circle back around to the Houthis in just a few minutes. While I'm doing that, though, look, we got almost 3,000 people online watching. And so if you haven't hit the subscribe button, please go do that right now. And the like button, that tells YouTube that more people need to see this content. And it makes it slightly less likely that YouTube will demonetize the video, although I'm not real hopeful about that because they've been doing that a lot lately. And so by way of insurance for you and for me so that we can continue to communicate in the possible event that YouTube decides to demonetize the account altogether. Go to chuckholton.com and you can subscribe for free over there, or you can sign up as a supporter as well for like $7 a month and just toss me a bone. But either way, that's a good way to find me if I suddenly disappear from YouTube for whatever reason. So thank you for watching. Please do hit that subscribe button. And let's move on to other news of note that's happening inside Israel. Yesterday, the IDF, or the police forces there, captured 23 Palestinians who were crossing illegally from West Bank, Judea and Samaria, into Israel proper, what the Israelis refer to as the pre-1967 borders of Israel. And they were captured trying to cross illegally through a checkpoint in a cement truck. So they were actually stuffed inside a cement truck, and they pulled them out. I've got some video of that if you want to see it. Let's see if oh, yeah, here we go. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It was a garbage truck, not a cement truck. That's a garbage truck. It's a very short video there, but you can see that they've pulled them out. This is happening on a daily basis now inside Israel. As a matter of fact, right before I went live, I was looking at an article that talks about this, that says that since October 7th, they have captured more than 2,900 illegal infiltrators into, I'm sorry, that's just since January of this year. They've captured almost 3,000 Palestinians crossing illegally into what they call pre-1967 Israeli territory, or, Israel proper. Now, you need to understand something about this. I don't want to make this out to be more than it is. That does not mean that there are 2,900 Palestinian terrorists that are trying to get into Israel to create shenanigans there. These are mostly Palestinians who are trying to go to work. You see, before October 7th, there were thousands of Palestinians who crossed every day into Israel legally in order to work in industries like, construction, some other, menial jobs, things like that. A lot of people like DoorDash, that kind of thing, were Palestinians. And as a matter of fact, there's right across from my apartment in Jerusalem, there's a large construction project that's been going on without stopping since October 7th. And I would say all of the guys who work there are Palestinians. Now, that means that they are most likely, well, not most likely, they are possibly there illegally. My understanding, I could be wrong about this, and I'm sure some people who live there will correct me if I am. The Palestinians who are allowed to live in Israel, the Arabs that are allowed to live in Israel can still work, but Israel has canceled all of the work permits for the thousands of Palestinians who had to cross from the West Bank into Israel every day to work since October 7th. So, and they're saying, at least the Minister of Economy is saying they are not planning to reinstate those work permits at all. And so all those thousands of Palestinians who used to work in Israel, they would come across every day and they could make about 5 times as much as they make working in the West Bank. There were something like what we see in Mexico, the maquiladoras, which are factories that were built just across the border inside Mexico so that they could take advantage of cheap Mexican labor. They had something kind of like that, where they had factories built just inside Israel, and these Palestinians would cross every day, go to work at these factories, and then go back home at night. Many of those Palestinians would cross through the checkpoints, and many of them would cross illegally into Israel every day just because it was easier. And there's not, you understand there's not a Trump wall between the West Bank and Israel. There's a barbed wire fence or a chain link fence with barbed wire on top. And in some places, there's like concrete T-walls. But many of those fences, there's a lot of miles of fence there, and they just cut a hole in it, and those guys just pull the fence apart and crawl through there and then go to work. It's just faster and easier for them. But it does create a security breach, a way for people who want to create shenanigans to come into Israel and do that. So those guys trying to do that now are getting picked up and sent back home again, and they're not allowed to work. But some construction companies and other companies are still hiring them kind of under the table, because if you think about it, there were these tens of thousands of Palestinians working every day in Israel before October 7th. There were tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of Israelis that were working every day before October 7th, who are now in the IDF, who are now called up to fight. And so they're not working. And so construction companies are just going under left and right. Many construction projects inside Israel are unable to continue, with their building projects, because they just don't have any workers. There's nobody to do it. They also had a lot of foreign workers from places like Thailand and Bangladesh and Pakistan, I don't know, a bunch of places. And those guys have pretty much all gone home since October 7th. So there's a huge, huge labor shortage in Israel right now. And so some Israeli companies are still willing to rehire their Palestinian workers. What in the world is that all about? That's Russian television back there, by the way. They're showing plus size models up there on the news channel. I don't know. That's a little distracting maybe. But some of these construction companies are willing to rehire those Palestinian workers that they knew from before, but they are getting hammered for that by the Israeli police. And so the problem is there are enough angry Palestinians in Judea and Samaria and the Hebron who would like to come into Israel proper to create shenanigans against the Israeli people, that the Israelis just can't take the chance. They can't take the risk. And so you have a kind of perfect storm of desperate Palestinians who want to work, other Palestinians who desperately want to foment violence, and desperate companies who need workers that are all sort of creating this big sucking sound to pull Palestinians into Israel. And that's creating a huge security problem for Israel right now. And unless things change, that's only going to get worse. In the past week alone, the IDF and the Israeli police have either found and disarmed or found and detonated multiple IEDs and IEDs, vehicular IEDs, inside Israel. Fortunately, as far as I can remember, no Israelis have been killed by those, but it's only a matter of time. I mean, all you have to do is go downtown in Jerusalem or Tel Aviv to see that there are, the Israelis are going about their business. And so you go down there on a nice evening and there are thousands of people out in the streets, walking around, going shopping, down on Jaffa Street, for example, in Jerusalem, thousands of people down there. And all it would take is just one of those guys to get through, and you got a major mass casualty event on your hands. And so kudos to the IDF and the Israeli police for being able to capture so many of these guys. But that is not the solution to the problem. They've got to find a better solution to this. For his part, Benjamin Netanyahu has actually floated the idea of reopening Andy, you can open that, reopening, reissuing work permits on a limited basis to Palestinians to allow them to start coming back into Israel and working. I don't know how in the world they could get away with that at this point, with tensions being as high as they are. That's one thing that even his own Likud party has just hammered Benjamin Netanyahu for even suggesting such a thing right now. But that's a major problem. Now, let's move on to one other thing. Again, I'm watching the time here. That's why I'm not really answering questions right now, because I've got to get this information out. And if we have time at the end, I'll answer a couple questions. Israel, the IDF has given notice to its commanders in the north to prepare for a cross-border incursion into Lebanon, and there are some rumors that they're also preparing to go into Syria. The Houthis made an announcement yesterday or today that they have managed to smuggle something like 50 to 150 of their own Houthi fighters into Syria, where they are preparing a October 7th style incursion into Israel. And so that's exciting. And that I doubt that that has a lot to do with Israel now preparing to actually put boots on the ground inside Lebanon and maybe Syria. That probably has more to do with the fact that the Hezbollah terrorist organization has been ramping up its attacks on northern Israel, maybe up 50 to 100 rockets at a time. That is an escalation. So you're talking about more than 3,000 a month at this point. So far, there have been very few injuries and even fewer deaths, thank God. But again, it's only a matter of time. And there are probably other factors that are motivating this decision from the IDF to prepare to launch a major cross-border operation in the next, could be in the next few days, next few weeks, into Lebanon that we don't know about. There's, the signals intelligence, the human intelligence that they have on the ground inside Lebanon and Syria is very good, as evidenced by the amount of attacks that they have thwarted in the past, 11 months. They have very good intelligence in there. And so if they're planning to do something, there's a high likelihood that they're planning to do something for a very good reason, and not just because more rockets and missiles have been fired across the border from the north, because that's been going on. You always hear me joke that 60 missiles coming across from Lebanon into Israel is called Tuesday in Israel. But there's a good likelihood there's more to it than that. Now, for its part, the United States has apparently been heavily pressuring Israel to put off any actual incursion into Lebanon until after the election. So, of course, it's all about politics for the Biden administration. Doesn't matter what the reality is on the ground. It doesn't matter what the threat is to Israeli people. It doesn't matter what the strategic end game is in the region. It only matters how the optics look to the Biden administration, and they really don't want another conflict on their hands between now and the election. So this is more evidence that the Biden administration really doesn't care one whit about the Israelis, about Israel. The only thing it cares about is getting Kamala Harris elected as president. And so this is a big issue, a big problem that Israel is continuing to have to deal with, right? Okay, so we got 4,400 people online. I'm going to go look really quick at the comments section and see if there's anything that needs to be answered. So if you have a question, ask it. Now, if you've already asked it, it wouldn't hurt to ask it again, because the scroll function doesn't work really well here. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate that. Let's see here. Whoop, there's a phone. How many hostages? There are still something like over 100. Israel, there's some breaking news that just happened, like even just a couple hours ago, that Israel is claiming that they have accidentally killed 3 Israeli citizens inside Gaza with an airstrike. And let me see if I can find that again. Find where what I did with that. Hang on just a second. Let's see here. I just want to see if I can find that. Oh, yeah. So, okay. So this is just the results of an investigation. This didn't happen recently. This is 10 months after their bodies were recovered. The IDF says that its investigation found that former hostages, Sergeant Ron Sherman, Corporal Nick Bezier, and civilian Elliot Toledano were killed as a result of a byproduct from an Israeli airstrike in the Gaza Strip. And their exact cause of death is still unknown. But that's what they just put out today. So that was not anything, that was not new hostages that have been killed. This is just results of an investigation. Can I interview Haim Mailspin at Aliyah Return Center? I have interviewed Haim several times. I tried to interview him on my recent trip to Israel, and the IDF press office told me that I would have to hide his identity, blur out his face, and change his voice. And I'm like, the guy does live broadcasts every day from Gaza, and everybody knows who he is, and he doesn't hide his own. And they're like, yeah, that's just our new policy. And I was like, you know what? Forget it. It's not worth it. I can do better stuff, myself than going through the IDF press office. You know what I'm figuring out is these guys are a bunch of leftist communists that have invaded the IDF. And they just, anytime, in my experience, more than 20 years of being a war correspondent, anytime leftists are in charge, the organization they're in charge of gets very opaque. Anytime conservatives are in charge, it gets very transparent because they want you to know the good things that they're doing. And I'm not insinuating at all that the IDF is doing anything that's untoward, that they shouldn't be putting out, but I'm telling you that that when leftists are in charge, that they never want any publicity about what they're doing, whether or not it's good or it's bad. And that's my opinion, but it's my opinion based on my experience with working with conservative and democratic administrations in the United States. So I'm just getting this sense that the people I'm working with the IDF press office are among those in the IDF who are hard leftists. And I think there are many Israelis who would agree with me on that. And so I'm getting more and more, let's just say, jaded on working with the IDF press office at all. Rod Menley asks, has he mentioned the hypersonic missile yet? Yes, I have. I'll go back to that in just a second. Matter of fact, let me show you right now because, again, we're running low on time. This is the Fatah missile. Now, those fins you see right there on the front and on the back, I have a photograph of a Fatah 2 missile. That is, I think here. No, here. There's a photograph of a Fatah 2. This one's painted blue, but if you notice here, if I can zoom in on that a little bit, it's got the fins on the front, it's got the pointy nose, and it's got the fins on the back. This is this is Iran's newest hypersonic missile that can go Mach 10 or better. So according to my calculations, this missile that they fired today was going about Mach 8. It traveled 1,200 kilometers in 11 and a half minutes. And that may have something to do with why they were not able to shoot down that missile until it was over Israeli airspace. But the bottom line is that missile fell to earth inside Israel territory, but it did not injure anybody. It did not kill anybody. It started a brush fire out in the middle of nowhere outside of Modi'in, I believe. So that's about all from it was like 6,800 miles per hour that thing was going. That's a fast missile. 6,000 miles an hour. The speed of sound is about what, 760 miles an hour or something like that, depending on the air temperature. So yeah, that's fast. That's pretty fast. But the Arrow anti-missile missile that Israel has can travel almost that fast and can shoot down missiles in space, and literally has done that. They have, during this conflict, actually shot down missiles in space. So yeah, there's that, right? I mean, that is, it can, the arrows, what is it? You have David Sling Arrow and the Iron Dome and the U.S. Patriot missile system that are all part of the total Iron Dome system, right? The Arrow is the longest range, in my understanding, anti-missile missile they have. It can travel more than 1,500 kilometers, or 1,500 miles, sorry. I mean, it's a long range system and can shoot down ICBMs and stuff in space. But in this case, they used an Arrow missile, but it shot down the Houthi missile over Israeli airspace. And I'm making an assumption it shot it down from the very bad cell phone video that came out in the region when it happened. Like I said, I could try to show it to you, but it would make you seasick because the video is so bad. So let's see here. Are these missiles fired from Yemen, made in Russia? No, they're made in Iran. No, Iran has been making deliveries to Russia of missiles that Russia is using in Ukraine. Russia has been making deliveries of shorter range missiles into Iran that Iran may try to ship into Syria and use against Israel. But also, Russia has been giving Iran some of its anti-aircraft capabilities in terms of electronic warfare, that sort of thing. Some of their upgraded, anti-air capabilities, that sort of thing. But, I just spaced on what I was going to say. Iran has been shipping lots of drones as well into Russia. As a matter of fact, Iranian Shahed drones are now being manufactured in Russia. And they're working together very tightly at this point. Also, North Korea is shipping missiles into Russia as well. Are you saying that Iran attacked Israel directly today? No. Iran gave its hypersonic Fatah 2 missile to the Yemenis. They likely had IRGC or maybe some Russians in Yemen helping the Yemenis aim it and get it all ready to fire, and then Yemenis pushed the button. So it was, they didn't, they didn't hit a chicken coop this time. But no, the Iranians did not directly attack, although they are still saying they're going to. The Iranians are still threatening a large-scale retaliation for the killing of Wasmail Hania, but everybody's kind of going, hey, at this point, look, send it or quit talking about it, right? Thank you, love, peace, joy. I appreciate that. So Lynn Dunn said, did you know Iran launched a satellite into space yesterday? Yeah, that's a little concerning to me because it was a military satellite. Iran just launched it into space, and who knows what's on that thing? The real question is how much Russian nuclear technology did Russia share with Iran? That's a fear that some experts have now, is that Russia is trading its nuclear technology to Iran in exchange for missiles and stuff from Iran that Russia can use in its war against Ukraine. And, the real scary question is, what was on that satellite? If it's a military satellite, is there any way for us to know if they had a warhead on that thing? Because setting off a warhead in space can create an electromagnetic pulse that could knock out the electricity for the entire eastern seaboard of the United States, for all of Israel, something like that, depending on where they set it off. That is a serious concern. And I haven't had a chance, because I've been on this tour, to read into that a whole lot. But thank you for bringing that up, Lynn. That's another thing that's like major concern now. So, all right, I'm going to have to go here. I want to say one more time, look, please go and subscribe to chuckholton.com. It doesn't cost anything, although you can support me if you like. And you can go find the documentary that I did about the dangers of an electromagnetic pulse going off over the United States on my channel over there. If you go to chuckholton.com, you subscribe, you can get access to some of the 65 documentaries I've made. And I made 3 documentaries about the threat to the American power grid by bad actors like Iran. So I would highly recommend you go and watch that. Maybe I can go find it and post a link. Post a link to it. But it is, if you go watch that, man, it'll make you want to start preparing for sure. So we're posting videos here on YouTube every day, even while we're on this this tour to Armenia. So recommend you go watch some of those. And there's a lot of really good stuff coming. But anyway, thank you very much for watching. Really appreciate all of you. If you have any questions, you want to reach me, you can do so at hotzoneholton@gmail.com. We will see you again next time, so stay tuned.